You were instrumental in shaping and designing the Obama administration drone policy. What are the legalities that you came up with?
Sure. Targeted lethal force is perfectly consistent with the laws of war. And it is, a general objective of the laws of war is necessity, proportionality, and minimizing collateral damage. Mm-hmm. And so targeted lethal force does that. And so when we talk about targeted lethal force, and that's not just unmanned aircraft, it could be a manned aircraft. In my view, the key is the application in a very traditional way of traditional legal principles. So the essential function of any military is to capture or kill the enemy. In an authorized legal armed conflict, a soldier becomes a privileged belligerent. That's a legal term, a privileged belligerent. Mario is privileged to kill the enemy if he is part of an authorized legal armed conflict. And so we've engaged in targeted lethal force for decades, if not centuries. The admiral in charge of the Japanese Navy, Admiral Yamamoto, was the victim of targeted lethal force. His plane was shot down very purposefully over the Pacific during World War II. We knew where he was, we knew where he was going, we knew what airplane he was in, and we shot him down. That was an exercise in targeted lethal force. If the individual is a lawful military objective and has not made a genuine attempt to surrender, then that person can be the subject of targeted lethal force, unless he's made an attempt to surrender. And so, modern day, you see the application of that same principle. In any military operation, and I'm only referring to the military here. I was the lawyer for the military. In any military operation, there has to be international legal authority for it and domestic legal authority for it. So I'd always look at something on two planes. And part of my job when I was General Counsel of DOD was to sign off on every use of targeted lethal force off the so-called hot battlefield. In other words, outside of Iraq and Afghanistan. And before it went to the Secretary and the President. And I took that very seriously, and I would personally immerse myself in each one of these to understand the potential collateral damage and who we were going after and where. And so we'd have to ensure it was consistent with international legal authority and domestic legal authority, and generally the laws of war. But in my view, when I said this in speeches, the best way to do that is consistent traditional applications of our law of war principles. Can't bend the rules to fit the policy.